I've been listening to this for a while, for a couple of days now. It is fantastic. It is captivating. What kind of obstacles come with making an audio movie like this?
Many, 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 many.
Um, Primarily, Joe and I come from a film and TV background. Certainly the last, 15, 20 years or so, we've been used to working with pictures, right? And so stripping that away and approaching it just from an audio-centric perspective has challenges and freedoms, right? The freedom that comes with that, certainly, I think most actors would tell you, being just you in a booth with the mic, no makeup, no lighting, nothing like that mattering, can mean that your only limitation is your imagination, and from that perspective, I think it's a wonderful medium to work in. From others, it definitely presents difficulty, especially when you've got big action sequences, some of the likes you may have heard, and thinking about, wow, how is that going to translate when you've got two larger than life tankers out there in the ocean and going through very dramatic sequences. But on the whole, it it was definitely something that we were excited to go on a ride for.
The
Uh,
first challenge was to take a full length TV version and a movie version and change it into something for the ears. Every single word of every single scene had to be looked at and changed so that it worked for the ears, rather than obviously it's primarily a visual medium. And without doing it without any narration, which again is something we achieved. So there is no narration. You are just taken on the journey by the actors, by the sound effects, by the amazing score that Stephen Edelman did for us. And that I think is the challenge of the ages in this instance.
Definitely, I know. Sometimes actors need, to have that chemistry with the rest of the cast to give out the performance. But since they were in a sound booth, were you guys able to record audio with them playing off of each other, or was it just all separate audio? And how do you how do you get them to give this performance when they're basically alone in a sound booth?
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for understanding the nature of that, because essentially we recorded this like a lot of animation studios have done for quite some time, where they're all individually in their own world. I mean, those were separate sessions. Not a single performance out of those 100 different roles was together except one time. And it was mainly due to the restrictions of COVID at the time. We had to have people isolated in their own booth. And so then the challenge becomes, like you say, how do we make sure the emotional intent and energy is being matched from one performance to another? And it just meant that when we were directing, we had to be very, very specific with, what was going to be the intention and the feeling in that scene, and even the pacing of it.
Mhm.
Something we learned was, in that situation, sometimes we would ask, hey, do you want to read or not the actor?
Mhm.
Knowing what we know now, we'd never give them the option. Always go for the reader.
Definitely.
And Misha and I worked very closely together on the performances, directing the performances together. We had Zoom links, of course, and we had Source Connect, which gave us the finest quality of sound coming back down the pipes to us. But my background is in the merchant navy. I served on ships like this, and so I was able to provide them with the environment. How you're 20 feet up. It's a metal room. You're standing on metal. No, you're on wood. How noisy is the sea? How noisy are the engines? That kind of thing. I was able to give to them, and Misha was able to focus more on the performances and the truthfulness of it and the level of intent and all the things that as an actor you have to get right.
It was a
Definitely.
it was a partnership that I think worked so well because of that. The level of expertise that John was able to give on that front is very, very unique. And for a show like this, it was imperative, and then it allowed me to do what I do without having to worry about certain specificities on that side, because he, of course, had them covered. And anything that came out in those performances there then translates. Yes, there was EQ added. Yes, there was atmospheric feeling to it, but you still want that initial performance to be as authentic as possible. Because if someone's calling out to somebody 30 feet away and they're not doing it in the initial performance, it doesn't work.
Definitely. And that goes to my next question. This isn't a podcast. this isn't a radio show. It's something a little bit different, something a little bit unique. How much trust do you have to have in each other in order to convey what's working, what's not, and how to, move forward from any obstacle that is to arise when making something like this?
I don't
Well,
know that we had much in that problem. I think we both could tell pretty quickly if a moment was working or not, or if the environment was working or not, if the sound effects was working, and the music, if the music score was right. I think we were both so invested in the story and in the background and in every instant, every inch of the process, and in every second of the story that I think we were pretty much agreed on, that's not quite right. And maybe I would say something like, no, that noise is completely wrong. The ship doesn't make that noise there and there. So the waves don't sound right. That technical side I could do, and Misha could concentrate more on. I'm not quite sure he or she is getting it quite right there. I don't think she's really understanding or getting across the emotion that we want.
mhm.
And we did it when directing as well. We gave ourselves a lot of options because we would take multiple takes of every single line, really, of every single scene in every single episode, so that and we would mark them up. I mean, we kept logs, obviously, and it's like, okay, take 5 sounds pretty good. Let's tick that one, and maybe have a half tick on us on 7 and 8. And so we could then choose which we liked, and if necessary, manipulate it as we needed to.
Definitely. And uh, going from that, you have a wonderful voice cast that each voice is very unique. It stands out. How important was it to find that cast, and how did you go about casting this?
So again, like I think it's very well noticed of you. We deliberately went in and tried to cast people with distinctive voices when all you have is what's coming through your ears. That was so important, and so we really tried to make sure that we made very deliberate casting choices with that. And from a perspective of then the actual personnel and which talent we went to, John and I sat down once those audio scripts had been completed and put together a short list of who we wanted for each character, and systematically then went out and prepared ourselves for some Hollywood conversations, let's say. And not all of those went the way we wanted. And of course, it's not just even a case of whether talent wants to do it. It's a case of availability. It's a case of negotiating rates. All of these things become a thing. But what I would say is we are thoroughly happy with the cast that we put together on this. And now at this point, I can't imagine other people for said roles. When we look at Thomas, who takes on the lead character in the show. It's almost like he was born to play somebody in that era. He embodied Arthur Hawkins just with so much truth, and he was just really committed when he came in. And no, we are very proud of him.
And when it comes to, visual movies, you can, kind of pace the dialogue to what the action is going on screen. How do you kind of fill in those silences that we have with visual movies in an audio movie like this? Because the pacing is fantastic. You get into it, it captures your attention, your imagination's going. There's so much going on in your head while listening to this, and it has such an amazing pace to it.
Well, we're both actors primarily. We've both been acting for a long time, TV and film. I've done a lot of stage, and we have an ear for truthful performance, I'd say. And there are times when you need to let a moment breathe. You need people to absorb what's happening to them, or what they've just seen, or what they've just heard. And it's not as if it's dead time. It's not as if it's dead space. There is stuff always going on. Misha's got 150, recording tracks vertically, and he's picking out, maybe there's a little bit of wind here, maybe the sea is softly going by, maybe there's a seagull in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, the audience needs the same amount of time as an actor, as the character, to absorb or take on board what's happening.
Right.
So
Right.
I think we just create a truthful environment and let it breathe, but obviously not let it drag. You don't ever want to drop that ball. You want to keep it all in the air and to keep the energy up at the right levels. But equally, those energy levels go up and down. The speed of things go up and down because that's life. And we listen out very carefully all the time as we're working on it.
If you let the truth, like you say, be your guide and know that ball is never dropped. And even when there is that, there's a moment, of course, in Courtship where we do have what some might call silence, but it's far from silence. The subtext of what's going on in that moment, as nobody may speak, but still being able to hear that atmosphere in that silence, for want of a better word, I think is very, very powerful. But I think you have to understand what it's taken to get there. Just playing that without any context doesn't make any difference. Playing that with knowing what has happened and why it's happened, and the investment in everything that's going on in that subtext and in and around it, hopefully makes those moments very charged.
And there's something I've learned as an actor. I learned it from a great stage director on a play I was doing back in England. Is you have to earn a silence. And by earning it, you have to make so sure that by the time you get there, the audience is ready to take that moment, to see maybe the actors on stage take a moment. We did it in a production of Henry V. You have to earn silences.
Definitely. And after all that, like, was there ever any skepticism in bringing this story to this type of platform, or was it always just making sure that it lended itself to create such a sound, such a captivating audio mixture for it to be an audio movie, and make it be this immersive? Because you do hear a lot of natural sound that you would hear on a boat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We tested it. We tested it, in fact. Misha, you take that one.
Yeah, well, the skepticism was real, like, to begin with, when Jack Bowman, who I may have mentioned, had come over from the UK right in the middle of the beginning of this COVID-19 pandemic. He had said, "Hey, take a look at this as an audio movie," and we didn't know what an audio movie was at that point. And we'd said, okay, well, let's see if something like this could even work. If there are such big action sequences as you know, in there, that we were like, let's try it out. We had some local actors in LA that we just got under some covers and recorded just a very short, it was really about 6 minutes of different scenes from what we thought would be in the show. And then tried to just build up some soundscapes and see if that could work just for the ears. And it was enough to give us the confidence to say, okay, let's go do this bigger. It can work. Even some very, very complicated sound sequences can work. Now, did it mean that the other thing, the bigger version of that, wasn't scary? No, of course there was still, I think, reservations with anything. But I think if you're not questioning, constantly throughout that creative process, maybe the creative process has died. And so, no, like, it was a constant rewriting, as it were, with every decision, and hopefully trying to hone and make that better and better and better.
Yeah, I had to rewrite every moment of every scene for the ear. I had to look at every scene and say, okay, does this work for the ear? Does it stand? Almost certainly not. It needs refining. It needs changing. Some maybe need to have to be taken out altogether because we simply can't think of a way of doing this without seeing it. Mm-hmm. But amazingly, the more we worked on it, the more I worked on it with input from Misha and from Andrew Sewell in England, and from Jack Bowman, with notes and ideas. We became better and better at working out how to make a scene work, or the whole thing to work for the ear. And there were scenes that I had where there wasn't a word spoken. It was purely visual. I had to completely rewrite them where obviously people are talking, but without clunky, without being expositional. We made a decision very early on that we would never have a narrator. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a given to begin with. I mean, when we were casting, we were casting and thinking of casting who's going to narrate, and then
right, we had it there in the cast list, narrator.
On our list, who's going to narrate?
Yeah,
and then the answer was, we're not going to have a narrator. We are going to tell everything through the story.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, congratulations. It is a very good listen. It's immersive. It's captivating. It's everything that it should be in order to get an audience's attention. So, congratulations once again.
Well, thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Jesus.
pleased you like it.